hard worker. This definition fits perfectly with the Scania R124G, popularly known as the bench among the people for its characteristic design of the front panel. In most cases, Russian carriers use this car on international lines, although Russian open spaces are not alien to it. Summarizing the experience of servicing and repairing the Swede in several transport companies, we decided to talk about the strengths and weaknesses for those who choose it as a second-hand workhorse. It is not without reason that the Scania brand has been holding the palm in the ranking of sales of new imported trucks in Russia for several years. However, not only here, but also in some countries of the former USSR. Reliability, comfort, and efficiency, without exaggeration, have become the hallmark of the products of the Swedish automotive industry. And the presence of such equipment in the company's fleet has a positive effect on the company's image and indicates the success of the transport business. Therefore, we chose this particular car for publication. There are no perfect people, and there are no perfect cars. Even the most reliable products break down and cause problems for their owners. Sincerely wishing to help carriers in the choice of means of production, our magazine begins a series of publications under the heading Exploitation. In it, we will talk about discontinued models that are of interest to those who choose used cars, as well as about new modifications that have just rolled off the assembly line. Our correspondents set themselves the goal of being as objective as possible and using data obtained not from one, but from several sources. We hope that carriers will be actively involved in the process by sending responses to publications to the editorial office. We will be grateful if you tell us about your own experience in operating certain brands and models of cars, not only foreign, but also domestic. And we hope that you will write about the operation of which equipment you would like to know. The Scania R124G car belongs to the 4th series, produced from 1995 to 2004. Since the autumn of 2004, the production of a new basic family of cab-over cars of this brand with the letter P began, and at the same time the factory indexing was changed. The letter began to mean the type of cabin, P, low, R, high cabin. By the way, Scania truck cabs, along with Volvo Trucks products, are considered the best in terms of passive safety. Thanks to a rigid frame structure with reinforcement elements, the side racks and the rear wall can withstand a shock load of 1 ton, and the roof does not collapse to a dangerous state under the influence of a load of 15 tons. The model we are considering was equipped with 6-cylinder inline diesel engines DC-11 of Euro 2 and Euro 3 standards, with high-pressure fuel pumps, Euro 2, and high-pressure pump injectors PDE, Euro 3, although there were also later modifications with HPI fuel supply system. Tractors with engines with a working volume of 11 liters with a capacity of 340 and 360 horsepower were delivered to our country. At 1900 minute 1. The maximum torque of the power units was 1600 and 1800 Newton meters, respectively, at 1050 to 1350 minute 1. Mechanical gearboxes were aggregated with motors, 8-speed GR900 with a divider and a reduction gear, 12-speed GRS 890 with range and 12-speed GRS 900 with range and 2 reduction gears. On some versions of the transmissions, the OptiCruise system was offered, which automatically selects the most optimal gear for given driving conditions at a particular moment in time. Due to the accelerated gear selection on the trip, a higher average speed of cargo delivery was achieved. Group G equipment, to which the car in question belongs, is designed to work in difficult road and climatic conditions, which is 100% applicable to Russia. Such machines have increased ground clearance and are equipped with a powerful spring suspension, in our case, front 2-leaf springs and rear 2-leaf half springs with airbags. Truckers joke, the main spare part in the car is the driver. And after a short pause, they add, true, not reparable and very expensive. A lot really depends on the driver, and not only in a global sense, safety of cargo, timely delivery, but also in particular, fuel consumption, operating costs. One of the transport companies told such a story. On the machines of the next batch, increased wear of the steered wheels appeared. First sinned on the manufacturer, but when they figured it out, they were surprised. It turned out that it was necessary to monitor the air pressure in the tires, at least once a week. And the drivers who switched to foreign cars from MAZs did not bother to do this even once a month. The experience of using Scania for 4 years has shown that there are no complaints about the car in terms of engine, gearbox, and axles. In general, the machine is very strong and durable, but requires some attention. Say, with a run of about 400,000 kilometers, the old-style steering column shaft dies. When the speedometer is 500,000 kilometers, the clutch is exhausting its resource. The calipers begin to wedge. Due to the poor quality of the fuel, there are problems with the fuel pump. After 600,000 kilometers, in most cases, the front wheel bearings need to be replaced, but the rear ones just need to be checked and lubricated. And then the parts that finish their service cycle due to natural wear and tear need to be repaired. So that the car does not cause problems, truckers on a run of 500 to 600,000 kilometers put it in for a month for repairs and carefully sort it out. With the conscientious performance of all operations, the Swede will serve faithfully for the same amount, or 450 to 500,000 kilometers at least. However, large companies prefer not to bring the equipment to such a state and, without waiting for a run of 1 million kilometers, put the equipment on sale. And even for such cars, the demand is quite stable. The driver himself usually monitors the timeliness of maintenance in full, and if the transport company is large, then a full-time auto mechanic or other person responsible for the equipment. Prudent drivers guess the next MOT with under mileage or a small over mileage at the home station. In this case, they will fit into a specific maintenance estimate. All spare parts will be of proper quality, and the work will be done in good faith. Checking into someone else's station is a kind of lottery. Of course, in most cases, everything will be done correctly at the corporate service. Another thing is how long and for what money. That is why some Russian truckers prefer to go to Belarus for maintenance and repair. At the same cost per standard hour, original spare parts are cheaper there. In the cab of one of the truckers, I saw a mysterious cipher. It turned out that there is nothing secret in the combination of letters. A set of letters meant a sequence of different types of maintenance. The SMSL line corresponded to one service cycle without MOTX. The other, XSXMXSXL, corresponded to a service with MOTX. The driver explained, this is necessary so that a more voluminous and unjustified service is not imposed on someone else's service. The branded service program has been proven over the years and includes the following elements. X service, after 22.5 thousand kilometers, takes approximately 40 to 45 minutes and includes lubrication of the pivots, spring pins, SSU, checking the oil level. According to experts, it prevents premature repair and replacement of many parts. MOTX is not carried out if the vehicle is operated in favorable conditions or is equipped with a central lubrication system. This implies a low dust content of the air, the absence of salt de-icing agents on the roads, and a low, less than 0.2%, sulfur content in diesel fuel. In practice, some carriers do not wait for the cherished 22.5 thousand kilometers, but service the car after 15,000 kilometers. This is especially true for companies with a large fleet, where they have their own mechanics. In general, Russian carriers tend not to create unnecessary problems for themselves and switch to the use of high-quality fuels and lubricants. For example, in order to start a car without problems in cold weather, many enterprises have abandoned the use of 15W40 mineral motor oil and switched to 10W40 semi-synthetics. It fades to a lesser extent, which means that you don't have to add as much as in the case of mineral water. But the principle of economy is sometimes observed as follows. In the warm season, the car runs on mineral oil. In the cold season, on semi-synthetics. You won't feel the difference in a year, but in a few years you will. Scania owners are advised not to forget about the engine idling. It must be taken into account when assessing the conditional mileage and developing a maintenance schedule for each car separately. This is especially true with the onset of cold weather, when the engine threshes for a long time without load. This is also typical for waiting in line for weight control or customs inspection at the border. Of course, it is very difficult to keep such records from memory, but if there is a focus on long-term operation of equipment, you should not neglect the recommendations of the manufacturer, especially since they are quite simple. 150H equals 10,000 kilometers. 300H equals 20,000 kilometers. 450H equals 30,000 kilometers. Truckers who have eaten dog while operating Scania offer some practical advice. But before bringing them here, I asked an authorized Scania dealer to check the correctness of such recommendations. As a result, only those that deserve attention and do not cause doubts of STO specialists will appear on the air. Electrical equipment. It is advisable to keep the onboard wiring dry and clean and not even use wires of a different cross-section with an unknown degree of resistance even for temporary connections. The retribution for such carelessness can be a fire, and these are not horror stories. The battery deserves close attention. Controlling the level and density of the electrolyte takes a little time, but it saves you from troubles in the future. Do not forget about cleanliness. A dirty surface can provoke a short circuit, as they say, with all the ensuing consequences. On major parking lots, it is advisable not to miss the opportunity to use an external current source to recharge the battery. In this case, the current strength should be equal to 1/10 of the battery capacity. It is a mistake to think that the battery should be charged only when it is deeply discharged. Experience shows that even a half discharge can adversely affect the operation of onboard electronic systems and complicate the cold start of the engine. After a long stay in the cold with the engine off, before turning the key in the ignition, it is a good idea to turn on the preheater. To facilitate the start, you can heat the diesel fuel in the fuel filter near the engine with hot water or another source of heat, with the exception of an open flame. Fuel system. Since diesel fuel of the European standard EN 590 cannot be found in the open spaces of Russia during the day with fire, in emergency cases kerosene can be added to our diesel fuel. It should be noted that the maximum dose of kerosene should not exceed 1/5 of the amount of diesel fuel. At the same time, kerosene is first poured into the tank and only then diesel fuel, but not vice versa. This procedure improves the mixability of the cocktail and does not harm the engine. But it is forbidden to thin diesel fuel with alcohol or gasoline. Long-term operation of the engine on such a surrogate will inevitably lead to wear of precision pairs in the high-pressure fuel pump and pump injectors. Moreover, in some cases it is fraught with failure of other parts of the power unit. The headache of the winter period is the waxing of domestic diesel fuel. Paraffin crystals can tightly clog filter pores and fuel lines. The result is a drop in power or a complete stop of the engine. The way out may be to exclude additional permanently unheated fuel filters from the line, for example, a filter separator installed on the frame. It is recommended to use liquid-type heaters heat exchangers, and even better electric ones, but with one condition: they must be mounted before the filter element. Air drying system. Truckers know that the air compressed by the compressor through the cooling coil is fed to the filter separator to remove excess moisture. In frosts, moisture that is not removed freezes and prevents the passage of air. That is why, before a long-term parking of the car, it is important to drain the condensate from the receivers and, to the eyeballs, fill the pneumatic system with the engine running until reset. This will remove moisture from the cylinder block and filter dryer. Air supply to the engine. A typical winter operation problem is condensation in the charge air cooler, intercooler. To do this, the engine does not have to be turned off. Freezing of water vapor also occurs during prolonged operation of the engine at low speeds, in a traffic jam, in a queue at the border, etc. You can identify the problem before stopping the engine by the characteristic white smoke from the exhaust pipe. Countermeasures are extremely simple. Open the crankcase ventilation system. But it is worth remembering that if the crankcase ventilation pipe is lowered too low, there is a risk of freezing droplets of moisture in it. In this case, oil leaks through the motor seals. Oil enters the intake tract from the turbine. At an ambient temperature of 0 to -10 degrees Celsius, diligent drivers close the lower part of the intercooler by a third with the cloth screen supplied with the new car. But if the cover is lost, it does not matter. You can use any air and moisture-proof material. Tarpaulin, linoleum, plastic, or something similar is suitable for this purpose. In frosts below -15 degrees Celsius, it is necessary to close more than half the height of the intercooler, and always from below. However, with an increase in engine temperature beyond +90 degrees, it is necessary to reduce the degree of blindness of the intercooler. What to do if condensate has already formed in large quantities and enters the cylinders? In this case, a purge is recommended. You will have to raise the cap, loosen the metal clamp on the corrugated pipe between the intercooler and the intake manifold, on the left in the direction of the car, with the hexagon, disconnect it and, lifting it up, put it on the manifold. Then you should start the engine and hold high speed, preferably at least 1200 minute, 1, for 5 to 10 s, several times until the moisture is completely removed. It happens that a large volume of liquid flies out of the intercooler, from 3 to 5 liters. Therefore, it is important to take precautions and keep body parts out of the way for air, water, and ice pieces to escape from the nozzle. There is one more nuance. In frosts from -15 to -40 degrees Celsius, experienced drivers advise to melt the condensate frozen in the intercooler on an idle engine using an external heat source and then blow out the intercooler. In the absence of this, You can warm up the device by running the engine at idle, not higher than 600 minutes, not forgetting to close the intercooler in front. But if the engine fails and starts to work unevenly, you must immediately stop it and purge it. In addition to the advice of experienced drivers, their feedback on the strengths and weaknesses of the Scania 4 Series. One of the most reliable parts is the power steering. Cases of their refusal are isolated and not typical for the 4. The steering column shaft created problems only on the machines of the first series due to the fact that the lower cruciate hinge was loose. There were no repair kits, and no technical intervention fixed the problem. At the request of Scania service centers, they have been redesigned, strengthened, and now, after replacing them for at least 2 to 3 years, the driver forgets about this detail. Sometimes on the benches, the upper power steering seal leaks. In some cases, carriers consider this to be insignificant and continue to drive until the steering column shaft starts to bite or completely fails. It is good if a repair kit is provided for a specific type of hydraulic booster, consisting of an upper oil seal and a dustproof ring. But there are such hydraulic boosters on which you have to perform a complete disassembly in order to get to the upper oil seal. The procedure is time-consuming, responsible, and, according to truckers, not all service stations undertake such work. They offer to immediately change the entire assembly. By car, the replacement of individual parts with the help of repair kits is well thought out, in particular in the brake system. It is much easier to change part of the caliper than the whole caliper. It costs at least 550 to 700 euros. Generator repair kits and saddle repair kits are in great demand among carriers. On cars 2000 to 2002 release, replaceable elements of the 4-point cab suspension are in demand. It is enough to change the front and rear bushings of the cab suspension, check the condition of the locks, and the problem is solved for at least 2 or 3 seasons. In the front suspension, a repair kit for the front stabilizer, bearings of the shock absorber of the cab suspension cushion, the so-called droplets, are in demand. When using non-original split cab suspension bushings, by the way, the same price as the original ones, an extraneous knock often occurs. Sometimes carriers are completely in a hurry to replace the entire stabilizer, forgetting that there are removable bearings, seals, and rubber metal bushings inside it. When installing high-quality parts, you forget about this problem for a year and a half. The weak point on the machines of the first batches are the cylinders and the cab lift pump. Subsequently, they were finalized, resulting in increased reliability and service life of parts. In addition, repair kits for both cylinders and pumps are currently being produced, allowing you to fix the malfunction on your own. But after 1 or 2 cases of using repair kits, mechanics are advised to change the cylinders and the entire pump. It happens that drivers complain about a knock in the area of /U200B/U200B right wheel. Previously, the Kulibins independently began to check the kingpin, bearing, and sometimes dismantle almost half the car. But when contacting a company service, it turns out that the 2 lower bushings of the cab lift cylinder were the cause of the groans. Hence the moral: if you yourself are not versed in technology, entrust the repair to those for whom this is a profession. The advantage of the Fresh 4 Series is that spare parts for it will be produced for a long time. Now there are no problems with ordering parts and assemblies for Scania cars of the 3rd and even 2nd Series, which left the factory in the last century. Some spare parts are completely unified with the parts installed on the latest generation of Swedish trucks. Thus, this technique is destined for a long life, including in the vastness of Russia.